So this story happened almost 2 decades ago. I never had a place to tell it though, until this subreddit. Despite this makes up one of my core memories from childhood because of how creepy it was when I was younger. Apologies for the formatting. I'm on mobile. It was around 2008. Me, my mom, my dad, and my brother were on a bus to go to a very popular and well-known mall when I was around the age of 4. At the time, we didn't have a car, so we had to take a few buses where we lived to get to this mall. One bus I got on, that led directly to the mall from one of the stops, was very crowded. I mean, everyone was riding up on each other crowded. There wasn't much room for any of us to move, so my family had to stand. Sometime during the bus ride, when we were getting closer to the mall, I ended up getting separated from my parents. Forced behind roughly 2 or 3 people and unsure of where my parents were, I panicked. We were near the back, by the rear doors. I was standing just a foot or two away from the stairs which led to an elevated area of the bus, and beside me was an old guy who was sitting in the seat right across from me. Something my parents had always taught me when I was a kid was whenever the bus was moving, you were always to hold the rails so you wouldn't get knocked around or go flying off. Due to my position on the bus, there was only a singular rail I could hold on to, the one right in front of this guy's seat. Because of what I was taught, I naturally held on to it so I wouldn't bump into people in front of me. This old guy, in response, grabs my hand firmly, holding my hand against the rail so I couldn't let go or get away. This man looked like your average grandpa and appeared to be in his 70s. And he was definitely able to overpower me, who I was basically in the toddler range. The facial expression this man gave to me was forever engraved into my mind. I can never unsee it. Instead of a gentle smile like an old grandpa would make at a child, this grin was much more sinister, and he laughed at me in response, trying to get my hand free once the bus had stopped and the doors were open. In fact, when the doors opened, he held onto my hand even tighter to stop me from leaving. Thankfully, I was able to wiggle my hand free because of the position in which his hand was at. I never had a chance to tell anyone this story, so Reddit, here you go. Old guy, let's not meet again. One time, I was walking home from the train station after I spent the weekend at my aunt's house. It was about 11 p.m. at night and very dark outside. When I was almost home, I noticed a guy on crutches in front of me, who walked in the same direction, then stopped every couple of meters to turn around and look at me before continuing to walk on. Since he was walking with a limp, I quickly passed him. When I did, he stopped walking and grinned at me in a very creepy way. I kept moving. Since I lived in an apartment over a burger restaurant, for a moment I considered to ask one of the employees to walk me to the front door. But to get to the entrance of the apartment part of the house, you had to walk around the house into a dark court. Finally, I, however, didn't ask because I thought, what could possibly happen? The guy's on crutches, and I didn't want to come across childish. So I was walking through the court of our house and wanted to pull out my keys while walking. Suddenly, I couldn't find them in my handbag. I realized I had thrown them somewhere in my travel bag because I didn't want to lose them from my handbag while staying at my aunt's and being out with her all the time. So still standing in the middle of the court, I had to search the whole travel bag for the damn key. I was so distracted by the whole key searching incident, I totally forgot about the creepy guy I had encountered before. When I finally pulled the key out of the bag, I looked up, and the creepy guy from before was standing right in front of me, grinning. I always thought in a situation like this I would start screaming, but instead I couldn't get myself to make any sound at all. With my keys in my hand, I started running to the front door, opened it, and jumped inside the house. The guy, still walking with a limp, followed me as fast as he could. Luckily, due to his injury, he wasn't as fast as me. Unfortunately for me, our front door was one of those doors that slowly fall into the lock automatically. But when you try to push them in order to shut them quicker, it pressures back and stops you from slamming it. So there I was, trying to push the door into the lock while the creepy guy was on his way following me. So there I was, trying to push the door into the lock while creepy guy was on his way to follow me into the house. Believe it or not, the door fell into the lock right in the second he reached the doorstep. Through the glass door, we just looked at each other, both breathing heavily from the race. He looked quite disappointed. I quickly ran upstairs to my apartment and locked myself in it. Later that night, I looked outside my window and saw the same man walking up and down the road in front of the house. He stayed there for about 3 to 4 hours after the incident. I can't tell you what it was that made me not call the cops. I guess I was like, after all, nothing happened. But then, what can they really do about it? After that, I didn't feel safe in my home anymore, because I knew that he knew where I lived. I only left my apartment when being picked up or dropped off, and made sure to be home before it was turning dark every day for 2 weeks. Finally, I decided to go to the police and tell them about it to ask whether they can keep a special eye on the neighborhood for a bit. I went to the police station, and it happened exactly as I feared. They took out notes and said, we can't really do anything about it right now. You should have called before, but we'll make a note. A couple of days passed, and suddenly I get a call back from another police officer who asks me about what happened. Then he tells me that they've been looking for a guy on crutches for months already, because he molested several girls in our town, followed them into their apartments, and even slept in front of their doors. He had been in police custody before, got out, and violated probation. He had some kind of mental illness too. The police officer told me immediately to call in case the guy showed up again. He luckily never did. It was only then I understood the seriousness of the situation and realized that I most likely escaped an attempted assault in some sort of way by just an inch. I, in a way, didn't believe myself that the whole thing actually happened before the police guy called me back. This was about 5 years ago, but I still think about it from time to time, and it still gives me the creeps. Hey, creepy guy, let's never meet again.